Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Xander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I have a great show for you today, and I'm so honored to be joined by Cyndee. Cyndee, tell us who you are and what you do.
My name is Cyndee Dhalai. Who I am, I haven't quite figured out as yet. But I do know I've played a lot of roles in life. I was a child, a sister, a student. Then I was a teacher, a wife, a mother, a counselor to many people. Then I was a patient, nearly died. Well, did die a few times, actually. I should clarify that. I did die a few times. Was disabled in a wheelchair. Then I became a widow when my husband died. And now I'm a writer poet and searching for myself still.
Wow. Well, to say the least, that is an epic journey, Cyndee. And I want to get into it because I know from doing my research that you've got quite the epic story.
Yes.
And I'm fascinated to learn different aspects of that. So let me start off with, I know when I was doing my research and I found you were writing about, in the information I had, about being ostracized. And I was interested because that's a really challenging thing, especially as a child. So can you talk a little about why you were ostracized and how you came up with that?
We get ostracized in a lot of ways. And I think most of all face ostracism, but we just don't see it as being ostracized when people leave us out of like events, or when people reject our friendship, or when our families don't understand us and we get the silent treatment, or on the converse side where you get too much bad attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in my case, I grew up, well, my country is small, like I told you. And, well, it's multicultural, multi-ethnic, beautiful place. Lovely people when you know everybody and stuff like that and thing. But sometimes, when you grow up in cultures that are restrictive and you have to follow traditional rules, and you end up being somebody who has a mouth on you and who question things and who speak out, that was my case in that don't tell me, do as I tell you, but not as I do, because I will ask, so if you're telling me to do this, then why are you quarreling with me? And you're doing something else. And I would get, I guess, criticized for that, called mischievous, troublesome. I never listened to anybody. And so you kind of felt it. And even in a large family, well, this is my personal, feelings of how it was.
I'm sure.
Other people might see it differently. They might say, no, that didn't happen. But just to an extent, it was how I felt, because you couldn't exactly speak out and say what you wanted, and the rest of them were quiet. But I was the one who had the mouth, and I would always say, well, no, that isn't right, or that's not something you should tell somebody. After a while, you began to realize that there was a separation between everybody around you and yourself. And you felt the separation. Yes, you might be related and you might have blood with people, but you feel a separation because they don't sync with how you think, or what your natural inclinations are, and how you, as a child, may see the world.
Definitely. And just for the audience, you live in Trinidad and Tobago. Just
Yes.
You reference that, but I want to. People are like, oh wow, where's she from? So yeah, absolutely. And I certainly get sometimes, as you said, in a more traditional society, the expectation is children are to be seen and not heard, and that kind of and that kid who goes, why? Explain that, and not accepting the answer of because I said so. Well, that's not a reason. Doesn't explain it. And look, Cyndee, I totally get I mean, I'm a son, I'm a brother, I'm a dad. I get the curiosity that children have, and denying information. Sure, you may change it or say, look, it's complex, but here, I'll give you a simple answer. And sometimes you'll have to wait to get that answer, because sometimes kids are precocious and they ask questions that it is not the time for them to know the answer to whatever, right?
Yes. I know sometimes, like, when you grow up, like, even though you might grow up in a multi-ethnic, multicultural society like mine is, what you do find, remember now, I'm talking about, now things have changed a lot now, but I'm talking about in the 1970s or so, right? Which is
Definitely.
like 50 years ago. So, of course,
We
things
really
would have,
don't need to put a number on there, Cyndee.
that would have been a long time ago.
I too was growing up then, but I really, we could just say, because it doesn't seem that long ago to me, at
Yeah,
least.
I don't mean either, but in terms of like how society has
Oh,
spiraled.
absolutely.
Anyway, but like when you grow up in a traditional family, like with traditional traditions and religious settings and stuff like that, you're supposed to conform a certain way. And girls in dresses do not climb trees.
Right.
And you don't speak out in the religious things because, like, in some religions, you know that the male are the dominant ones and they have the most respect. And you're not supposed to question things. And I did,
Right. Okay.
so the ostracism came from like, or the isolation then in a sense too also came from everybody around me, because as I grew older and when you go to school, in a school that has all the different religions and different races and beliefs and stuff, you do develop the sense that, wait, I am not singular in the sense that what my religion or my beliefs are the only thing. There are other people too. And I was more open to reading a lot, and I read about Buddha and Islam and Sai Baba, and I was a Hindu, and I would read things, and it kind of gave you an insight into things outside of the scope of what you traditionally would find at home.
Absolutely. And I agree that exploration, especially, they always say the two things you shouldn't talk about are politics and religion at the dinner table, right? And funny enough, that somehow seems to always get into dinner table conversations, and there's,
Yeah.
hurt feelings. However, I do agree that curiosity to say, yes, there's not just one way. There isn't one belief system. You can read about Islam, you can read about Judaism and Buddhism and Jainism and Hinduism and go, I understand that, but I still believe,
Yeah.
this is what I believe. Or you want to know what, I'm going to sort of, I kind of like I like this idea from this religion, but understanding that, the human experience is, you and I could look at a painting and see completely different things in that painting. Doesn't make you right or me right. It simply means we're seeing different things. That's part of what makes the human experience unique. If we all believed the same thing, we all saw the same thing, it'd be kind of boring.
Yeah. Life would be very boring because I don't think any of us were made to be a clone. And I think we are all cast in our own mold. So we have a right to, you may say a situation one way and I may say a situation the other way, but who is right and who is wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so look, fascinating. I'm sure that was really challenging for you. You mentioned when you were introducing yourself that you had, you died a couple of times, you were sick, you were in a wheelchair.
Yes, I did. Like I said, like you said, you talk about epic. Well, I guess we all have our life experiences, but some of us may get a bit more in our experiences than others, in that I didn't know, like, apparently I had these illnesses in my body. And I say my body, I don't say myself, because my illnesses are my body. They're not who I am.
Right.
Right. And then I started getting really ill. My body started, and you go to the doctor and they'll give you like one or two they will treat what symptoms you go to them with. But then everything started getting deeper and deeper. And I found out that my body had many illnesses, among which were lupus and chronic kidney disease and, a whole set of other things that come with not being treated because they didn't know what it was and stuff
Sure.
like that. So it had progressed to the extent that it was affecting my body very badly. And they had recommended that I try a drug that was now coming out named Plaquenil at that time. And I flatlined on it.
Oh, my.
Yeah. And I was out for 18 and a half hours, according to the medical report. And they didn't know how I would be when I come back because I just flatlined in less than 5 minutes after taking it.
Wow.
And that happened, and then I went into a fog for 4 years of being ill. And I don't have much recollection. Like I tell everybody, my body was here, but my mind wasn't here because I didn't really know what was going on. The only experiences I've heard is from like my late husband, my children, people who are around, or the doctors, and then reading my medical reports. So those are the only things I knew. But I did flatline 5 times. And the thing about it is that I'm allergic to all medication.
All medications.
Even a baby Panadol can kill me.
Wow.
And I tried we did go to see like the homeopathic and the naturopathic because, we wanted to see if there's anything that could help because it was getting really bad. And at that time, I ended up in a wheelchair because for some reason I started falling down. I would stand and I would try to walk and I'd fall down. And the doctors, they couldn't find like a specific cause for it. And they said it was all neurological because of the fact also that I had flatline. So they didn't know what happened. And they couldn't go in and find out and test to do any sort of test because the dye they would have to inject me with could kill me.
Right.
So it was like a catch-22.
Wow, Cyndee. I just have to say that so far, you are wonderfully unique and certainly don't make it easy for the people in your life. I'm not saying that in a bad way, but I'm like, your poor doctors are like,
I will admit
we want to help you, but we don't want to kill you just trying to find out why you're sick or what's going on.
Yeah, because my doctors always said that I was a medical enigma and a miracle. And then most people who know, and not many people know, but now people are beginning to know about my history of my body being sick.
Sure.
Because I don't look ill. I don't sound ill.
No.
I don't act like an ill person. And unless I tell you, you would know.
That is absolutely true.
And when most people do find out, like the fact that because the illnesses are not going to magically disappear from my body, right?
No.
And I can't take treatment. And I have not been to a doctor since 2013. And I have not had a single illness since 2013. And everybody wonders, what am I doing? And I said, I'm not on medication because they can't treat me. So what are you doing? How? So I tell everybody I live by the grace of God because that's the only thing I can think of, because how else could I live without medication after suffering for 4 years of everything you can think of, from fingers and toes turning blue to blood toxemia to flatlining to having to get 13 pints of blood every single day because I had 0 platelets, 0 red blood count cells, 0.
Sure.
Yeah, that was the whole history of it.
Wow.
And then suddenly to wake up and tell everybody that. And when I was in a nursing home for 3 weeks the last time, to wake up and pull out all the tubes and say, I'm ready to go home now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was in a wheelchair. And after that, for over 11 years, for over 8 years again. And my husband died. And that was like really hard because he died after short illness and was unexpected. And I got told, why didn't you die instead?
Oh, my.
Yes. And so I had to find a way. Now, I have 2 wonderful children who are really, really great and fantastic and supportive. And to be honest with you, they turned out a lot better than I could possibly have expected. So I am really blessed in that sense. And I was trying to handle everything because I was in a wheelchair. This was in 2021, Christmas Eve, my husband died. And in 2022, I was trying to get like a grip on everything, because I was by myself.
Oh, sure.
I was married for 33 and a half years, and that was a long time. So, you kind of have to organize everything and stuff. And I was getting tired because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody because I've always been independent. Even in my wheelchair, I was always independent and stuff like that and thing. And I just sat down and I said, God, we have to talk. I said, because this is not how I want to be. And I don't want to be a burden to anybody. And you're the reason why you brought me back. I have no idea why I'm still here, but help me. I don't want to be in this wheelchair anymore. And after that, well, I did try walking in between all the years. And like we had walkers and stuff. Like I had a walker and I had everything you could think about, to start walking.
Sure.
But every time I tried to walk, I'd fall. And the risk was that if I damaged myself, they couldn't treat me.
Right.
And finally, like my children got upset with me. And my husband was always telling me, don't do this because, it's a risk you take. And whatever. And then my children, I remember, because I was stubborn and I was being selfish and that I wanted the life that I had before, being independent and being able to drive and to pick up myself and go wherever I want to go and to do things.
And that makes sense.
But it was being selfish also because I understood what they went through, but I wasn't there to see how they experienced it or what they went through with me, right? And then they said, Mom, you have no idea what it is. And my husband told me, he said, I don't think I could stand you flatlining again because I don't think I could go through that again.
Understandable, Cyndee.
And then it hit me that I was being selfish. And I was always the one who was supportive, and I was the one who would do everything for everybody and be there for everybody, and counsel and help and do everything for my family and my children and stuff like that. And then suddenly, at the time, I stopped and I said, what are you doing? You are being so selfish because you have no idea what you put them through. Yeah, they tell you, but it doesn't click in you because I wasn't present. Like my body went through it and like I wasn't really present to know what they went through. And I said I was being so selfish. And that's when, I adjusted to being in a wheelchair. And then afterwards, after my husband died, it was, I don't want to put my children because they're both married. They have their own families, and they can't be running back and forth. And every time I have to do something, they got to go and whatever. And I said, my husband was okay because I was my husband, with you
Sure.
married and stuff like, whatever. Right?
That's what he signed up for.
Yeah. Sickness and in health and whatever. Then like I started trying to move and little by little, I made a few more steps and a few more steps and a few more steps. Yes, I did fall down and twist my ankle a little bit and things like that and stuff. And I did get a big scratch on my foot. And it took like months to heal because I can't take any medication. So I would just use like honey and clean out the cuts and stuff like that.
So you couldn't even if you had a scratch, you can't even put antibiotic or anything? Have they ever determined why or how you're allergic to literally every medication?
Well, what the doctors had surmised, and I had gone to the London Lupus Center also, and what the doctors had said is that because it's lupus, your body's fighting everything.
Got it.
And what it does. And then they said that your body sees everything as an invasion. So
I got it. Makes sense.
And that's what happened. So I couldn't take the risk of putting anything on it. So what I would do is use my own natural thing, clean it with salt and water and put honey on it. And no, it takes a long while because it's a heal because also my blood doesn't, the clotting factor is not really present in that I bleed for a very, very long time.
I got it. Now, do you still have lupus and the symptoms of that and you just sort of deal with it?
Well, they can't test to see the extent of anything that I have, even the chronic kidney disease. They can't test to see because, like I told you, to do a biopsy, they'd have to use things and stuff like that. And I'm allergic to everything. So the doctor says, Cyndee, it's a catch-22 in that if we want to find out how bad your kidneys are and your other organs are, we'll have to do a biopsy. And that involves anesthetic and stuff like that. And we can kill you trying to find out how bad your body is. And right now your body seems to be going fine. So we're not going to do anything.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Well,
but yes, I do have some things that show up in my body. But in terms of managing it, because I'm not healed. I know I'm managing it. Right. And in terms of managing it, over the years, through all I've been through, with all the trials and tribulations that have come my way, through struggling, and things like that. And the people, treatment, how people treat you and all the adverse things that have happened in life, I kind of find myself, I did slip into the mindset that, listen, I'm going to take it day by day. And I am going to, as far as I'm concerned, I got 6 chances. This is my sixth life. I am going to live it as it is a new life every single day. And that's what I do. And slowly, bit by bit, like, yes, I have migraine that's always on the right side because of the fact that with the lupus and stuff like that. And I do have to be careful in, getting allergies and
Oh,
food
sure.
sensitivity,
Sure.
whatever. But I am very mindful of what to eat and stuff like that or whatever. But I think it all comes down to the mind. Because in my mind, I made up my mind that, listen, there is nothing that I cannot do. And I will determine what I do and what I don't do. Yes, my body might reject and my body might battle me. And people mightn't like what I do, but I only have one life. And there's only one me. And I'm going to just be me.
Absolutely, Cyndee. And a lot of, I'm a mental health professional also. And I'm a firm believer that our mindset is what the story we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And what we believe is incredibly important, especially if you were facing a injury or an illness or something. The people who tend to get better when they, by all accounts, you shouldn't get better, or you shouldn't walk, or you're not going to survive. A lot of it is, no, I'm not actually buying into that. I am going to, just like you said, every day I take it and I'm here, and here's what I want to do. I'm clear about what I will do, what I won't do. And sure, maybe something you choose to do, you scrape your foot, something happens. Well, you want to know what? That's life. we're we're going to make mistakes. Stuff is going to happen to us. Certainly for you, I hope nothing, some little thing doesn't turn into a big thing again. However, I do believe that our mind is one of our most powerful healing tools. That believing that you will be okay, it goes a long way for you being okay.
Yes, it does. Because you see, you will always experience things in life. People will always have to give you their opinion, whether you want it or not. But one thing I've realized is you should never let anything determine your expectations and what you feel for yourself in life. Very often, because what you have to realize is that when you talk about the mind, people say, well, it's all mental, yes, but I don't know, because you have to have determination, and that takes a lot sometimes, and I slip. Yeah, but I tell myself, listen, who do you live with 24 hours a day? Even when you're asleep, you live with yourself. You
Yeah.
talk to yourself 24 hours a day. The same way when you ask someone, how are you today? Or how are you going? And you listen to them and you express compassion and you express support and, whatever. Why can't you do that for yourself? Why can't you say, okay, well, how are you today? And your mind will probably say, well, what? But how are you today? I mean, and you can always go through like things that happen today and say, well, okay, these things happen, but I mean, I felt bad or I felt good or it was nice or it was horrible. But then you tell yourself, well, okay, I will try to remember next time probably to do better or just put it away because, all right, that's what it was in that moment, but I'm still here and I can do something now.
Definitely.
Learn something else now. And that's what you have to do. And at least that's what I did because even though I was in the wheelchair, I said, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? Because I was a teacher before, right? And I
Right.
love teaching. But I had to leave because when I got sick, so sick, you have to retire medically unfit. And I had to leave teaching. I couldn't drive anymore. I couldn't just pick up myself and go and do stuff. So you kind of, and even with my children, they were getting older. They were doing their own things and stuff. My husband was working and he used to work like shift. And yes, I was cooking, still cooking in the wheelchair and cleaning up and doing things I want. But then I said, okay, what are the advantages of me being in a wheelchair? I mean, that's a strange thing to ask. What are the advantages of you not being able to do all the things that you had before? Yes, I lost my independence and I lost some things that I valued before. But what were the good things about me being in a wheelchair? And then I realized that even though I was patient as a teacher before,
Mhm.
now I learned what being patient really was, because I couldn't just go out and do things. I had to sit back, and then I learned to live with myself and to see
Sure.
myself as I am, and to see where I would get where I thought I was better, I really wasn't so good. And I learned to listen. I mean, listen, not listen with my ear while my mind is planning. Okay, I have to do this later, or what am I going to respond to the conversation? Or, I wonder what this person expect me to tell them, or how am I? Those things go through your mind. You don't realize it, but you do. When you're having a conversation with somebody, you're listening. Yes, you're hearing their words, but your mind is also thinking about how you're going to respond to them. Instead of just listening to the words and hearing what is unspoken sometimes, or seeing the body language and stuff like that. Then I saw that I was becoming more aware of the whole person, not just what somebody was telling me.
Absolutely. And it's interesting. That sort of taps a little into, I had some guests on a prior podcast where their whole thing is talking about getting in touch with your intuition again, right? And a funny thing is, we have like a million years of evolution where we got here because our ancestors listened to intuition. Ooh, that feels dangerous. I should be careful. That doesn't look safe, right? And yet nowadays, with all of the vast information we have, between the internet and social media and all of this stuff, a lot of us have lost the ability to actually pay attention to our intuition, right? And in the counseling I do, I talk to my clients all the time about, if you have anxiety, right? Before your conscious mind knows it, your unconscious mind is aware that something's anxious. If you start to pay attention to what those symptoms are, like, oh, that feeling, if I'm feeling anxious, I start to feel it in my stomach. I feel like I have butterflies. Pay attention to that. That's a way to sort of help lessen what's going on, because your body will tell you. Our bodies are fantastic machines that again, work really hard to keep us alive. If we pay attention to what it's telling us, funny things happen. We actually are okay.
Yeah. So, sometimes you may think, well, that I can't do this anymore, or I can't think. But then sometimes you have to shift your perspective, because it's not that, how do you know you can't do something unless you try it? And sometimes when you try something, you're following somebody else's method. Okay, I am going to do these things, and I'm going to have all these affirmations and do these manifestations thing and do this course and do that course. And in between, you find yourself, this doesn't feel right, but no, I have to finish the course because I paid for it and stuff like that and thing or whatever. And I'm going to do it, and I'm going to get up every day and do these things, but you're not committed.
Right.
And that is something that's very important, because sometimes we want to do things, but we are not, and commitment is the underlying source or the foundation on which anything can be done. Because, okay, you want to feel, you have a illness like me, or you are suffering like a relationship breakup or a loss or whatever, and you keep going back and back and back to how it was before, and you find yourself going in the cycle, right?
Yep.
And what you do is, sometimes you have to sit down and say, why is this happening? Why am I going back and going over the same thing? Why am I keeping myself stuck in this same place? And all I'm doing is like, I'm spinning top in mud. Well, that's an old saying, spinning top in mud, right?
Yeah.
You're not getting anywhere. And yeah, you're going to go to the outlying part of it, and you think you're going to progress, but you haven't let yourself really commit to moving forward, or acceptance, or agreement, or commit yourself to something that you want to do. And commitment is very hard.
Absolutely. Change is hard. So, Cyndee, you and I could talk for hours here. I want to thank you so much for sharing your truly epic journey through all of this. And I am so happy that you are where you are, that seem to be doing well and thriving. That is just excellent and such a testament to all the things that you've talked about and the way that you live your life. If people want to get a hold of you, they want to find your books or your poetry, how can they do that?
Okay, my books are available on Amazon.com. There are Pieces of Me Touch My Soul, which is a poetry book by Cyndee. And there's also Grief is the Price You Pay for Love by Fialian, which is a pseudonym I used. And they're both available on Amazon.com.
Awesome. Well, Cyndee, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome, Zan. It was very nice being with you.
Exactly. Well, thank you. I want to remind everyone, thank you for listening. If you're ready to begin your epic journey, go to epicbegins.com. And as always, remember that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book Epic Begins with One Step Forward at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Xander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Xander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.